Well, Senator Lummis, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's really exciting to have you back on Crypto in America. We talked to you, I believe the last time was in August at the SALT conference in Wyoming. And at that time, we were in a much different position in the market structure phase of negotiations than we are now. It's January. We are on the eve of the market structure markup for the banking committee. And I think my listeners in particular really want to know, where are we in those negotiations now? Can you give the listeners a temperature check after the member meeting that you just left? Where are we with Democrats, Republicans?
Well, it's been arduous since we last spoke in August. When in August, I would have told you that we were going to take up this bill and mark it up on before September 30th.
I think you made that prediction on the
and that
podcast.
It would be on the president's desk before Christmas.
Right.
I was so wrong. We've been negotiating this bill for 4.5 months. We had 4 markups scheduled. Those dates had to be vacated because members weren't ready. But during that time, negotiations continued. There wasn't a week that went by between early September and now where we haven't had negotiations. So today is the last day for negotiations. Tomorrow is the markup. We have a full list of the amendments that we'll be discussing tomorrow. I expect a long day. But I expect the issues that we will have differences of opinion about to be very few because we've worked so hard the last 4.5 months to limit the scope of the issues that are still being negotiated.
In your words, it was thousands of hours. And I think the bill as it stands now is almost 280 pages and around 137 amendments. What are the key amendments that we should be watching out for in the markup tomorrow?
There's been an ongoing issue that's really unrelated to the market structure bill. It's a hangover from the Genius Act, and that is whether interest can be paid on balances, and the banks are very much opposed to that. They don't want a product that looks like a banking product. In other words, you're calling it interest or yield or a payment on balance to be used by the stablecoin industry. So even though...
Because they see it as competition, right?
I think that's right.
Right.
So we were, that remains a front and center issue in the market structure bill. Now, a couple of alternatives, ideas that have been vetted with both banking and the stablecoin industry are under consideration today. So it comes down to seeing what the members of the banking committee want, which one they choose.
It won't be all 137, correct?
Well, I hope not. Otherwise,
It'll be a long day.
it'll be a long week.
Yeah, that's true. We probably won't get through that in a day. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So stablecoin yields. What about DeFi? That's been a very, I'd say, contentious part of negotiations probably in the last couple months, right? The DeFi industry are a big stakeholder in this bill, in this process.
And we spent a lot of time on DeFi in our negotiations over these weeks and months.
Almost derailed the bill, I would say, a couple months ago, right? There was a big blow up between industry, Democrats and Republicans, I think back in maybe September.
I think we're back on track.
Yeah.
So I don't really anticipate that issue dominating our time. But there are some little tweaks that I think will be discussed. It'll be interesting to see if they have bipartisan support for any of the amendments that are tendered tomorrow. But I really do think they're minor compared to where we started.
Okay. And then on ethics, it's my understanding that because the Senate Banking Committee has such a small jurisdiction over ethics compared to some of the other Senate committees, that ethics inevitably will get brought up tomorrow because I think it is such a priority for some Senate Democrats. Yes. But it's not going to be part of this bill text. It will get added later on, perhaps after committee, before it goes to the full Senate. Am I correct in that?
I think that's a fair statement. One of the big issues is under the U.S. Constitution, to what extent can the president and vice president be bound by additional criteria for their service? Mm. And earlier case law would indicate that there's very little that additional conditions that can be added by Congress other than those that appear in the U.S. Constitution. This is an issue that we've been involved in more to try to provide language that's acceptable to both Democrats and the White House. Mm-hmm. And we're still working through some of those alternatives.
Mm-hmm. Because the president is a big part of this factor, because the Democrats want to see the president have ethics rules applied to him.
Correct.
And the White House is not on board with that because they believe it's unconstitutional.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And members of the president's family in particular, and some of his cabinet members, mm-hmm. Their children are very deeply involved in digital assets. Mm-hmm. And so Democrats are trying to restrict the family's involvement and at least the president and vice president's involvement. One of the reasons that I try to explain to Democrats that these families got involved with digital assets is they got debanked.
Right.
So if you have a very large business and you're trying to make payroll and your bank tells you we're closing your accounts this weekend, you can't make payroll. And for a bank to do that simply because of they don't like the politics of a customer or the type of business they're in, it sounds so un-American. And so some of these families were searching for alternatives that would allow them to keep and protect and have their own assets and have freedom from institutions that could harm them. And that's one of the reasons that the Trump children embraced the digital assets. You have more personal sovereignty
right.
over digital assets. And so now to say, oh my gosh, they're self-dealing, you pushed them into it, bankers. And I think that story's frequently forgotten.
I had my share of conversations with industry stakeholders yesterday. I think it was sort of the first time a lot of them had been able to see a nearly final, complete bill text, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think the feedback that at least I got was overwhelmingly positive or overwhelmingly negative. And I feel like most of the time that's an indication of a good piece of legislation, right? Because like that kind of, at least to me, shows that there's been compromise and like usually the sign of maybe a good bill. But I guess maybe one of the things that I was hearing more so than other things was that this bill in particular was maybe more favorable to the banks and TradFi more than maybe Clarity was, the House's bill. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that banks are so influential now in digital asset policy, even though they've historically been removed from the industry and its technology and even criticized it, frankly?
Yeah, they have. They've been pretty hostile to it, which is silly because they're going to marry each other after this bill. Mm-hmm. You're going to see more hybrids where you have a bank joining forces with a digital asset company. So both can offer both fiat and non-fiat stores of value and means of exchange. So it's interesting to see the resistance, but as things change in technology, and the technology drives different business structures, I don't think anything has been as significant as the financial services industry and the cryptography that has allowed stores of value to occur on a blockchain. I mean, it's so foreign to a lot of people that they're afraid of it. And they'll get more comfortable with it over time. Yeah. I know they will. So we have to go through this period of time where there's fear of the unknown, but very shortly. I mean, not 5 years, less. You're going to see more hybrids, more marriages of digital asset companies and banks.
And you think the passage of this legislation will speed that up?
I do.
Yeah. Just quickly on the DeFi side, you've been an advocate for a long time of developer protections and self-custody. I saw this week actually some TV ads running that were targeting senators to say no to DeFi-specific provisions in this bill. I'm curious, why are DeFi protections for software developers and self-custody so important to get right, and so important to get right in this bill specifically, in your opinion?
Well, first and foremost, code, the writing of code that enables cryptography is protected free speech. So when the internet was founded, the government wanted to control it, our government. And the developers of the code wanted to socialize it and make it more available. And when the courts determined that code is free speech, it broke that logjam. And now we all have access to the internet. You know, initially, the United States government wanted to be the sole proprietor of the internet. And we've seen with opportunities to use our constitutional rights to free speech and to, freedom in this country as a facilitator for innovation. And that's why I think it's so important. Mm-hmm. That's why I want to custody my own digital assets. Let me tell you what happened to me. You know this story. My husband and I, when he was still alive and we had joint bank accounts, was moving our accounts from one bank to another. During that same week, I was off campaigning elsewhere in Wyoming for re-election to the U.S. House. So he moved our accounts, he signed the accounts, but I was away, and so my signature wasn't on him yet. He died suddenly in the middle of the night of a massive heart attack, and my name was not on any of our accounts. Mm-hmm. During all that moving, he had also moved his will. So I couldn't find it. Oh, so I couldn't get letters testamentary so I could be the executor of his estate. And it was scary and unnerving because I didn't have access to my own money. Mm-hmm. And when someone else is custodying your money, you have an IOU, but you don't have that immediate access to your own money. So that really frightening experience for me also led me to look for ways that I could self-custody that was safer than putting cash under a mattress, but still provided me that kind of access. Mm-hmm. And I found it in Bitcoin. And so I'm a big proponent of self-custody, of individual wallets, of the sovereignty that I have to store my wealth the way I choose and not the way the government chooses.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think there is so much pushback to self-custody in particular?
I think the government wants to know how money is being spent. I think they worry that digital assets are used more often for illicit purposes than legitimate purposes. Mm-hmm. Certainly there are examples of digital assets being used for illicit purposes, for criminal activity, but it's actually more common for US dollars to be used for illicit purposes. And what people don't realize is there are companies like Chainalysis who have the ability to uncover the illicit use of digital assets. So the ability to mete out criminal activity in the digital asset space is actually pretty sophisticated.
Mm-hmm. All right, I have to ask, your best guess going into tomorrow, how many of your Democrat colleagues are going to vote yes?
I don't know. Okay. There are a number that say I want to get to yes. There are some that I think are honest brokers. There are some that I think are not honest brokers. And so as this 4.5 months have gone on, I'm more inclined to think that we'll get some votes from the honest brokers, mm-hmm. and that the dishonest brokers will vote no because they always thought they would and they just wanted to gum up the works. But I think by and large, most of the people we've been working with have been good negotiating partners. Mm-hmm. And because Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and I have enjoyed such a solid working relationship since we started on this together over 4 years ago, and since she has such knowledge in this space that she has shared with her colleagues, I'm hopeful that her influence will show up tomorrow.
Patrick Witt, the White House Executive Director of the Crypto Council, Executive Director of the White House Crypto Council, that's the order I meant, he told us on Monday that if no Democrats vote yes tomorrow, that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's back to the drawing board and months more negotiation. You know, it might mean that, but it might also not mean that. Is that your understanding?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I want to compliment Patrick Witt. He has been, talk about honest brokers. He has been extremely helpful. He's been very responsive. He has gotten back to us about what the White House can and cannot agree to, where the negotiating space is. He gets high marks from me.
Well, final question. This is your last year in Congress. You announced your retirement a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. So if this bill passes, this will be your legacy in Congress. When you leave, any plans to stay involved in digital assets, maybe out in Wyoming?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I put, early on when I came here and realized that there was not much knowledge or interest in digital assets, my staff encouraged me wisely to put my individually held stocks and my Bitcoin into a blind trust that was approved by the Senate Ethics Committee, so I did that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, since I did that, whether I still own those assets. I hope I do. And so when my blind trust expires, I think I'll keep those assets, most of them. But I'm more concerned about the opportunity to manage my own money. And I'll always have an interest in this space. It's fascinating. The people in this space are fascinating.
Never a dull day, right?
Never a dull day. But I also love to spend time with my cows and my ranch, mm-hmm. and my grandchildren. I do know this, I'll never quit working. The great joy of my life, getting up every day, is the opportunity to work in America. That'll never change.
Love that. Senator Lummis, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eleanor.